Lloyd, Ruhl, aka MegaBlitzz. In today's video, we're talking about the top 16 deck lists from Portland Regionals. I'm very excited to go over these deck lists because we're going to talk about some of the cards and stuff in these decks that are going to be leaving rotation here soon in a couple of months. Some of them I'm very excited to see leave, and others not so much. But I'm excited to talk about them nonetheless, and I'm also super excited to talk about certain deck lists in particular because of their performance, and it would have been the deck I would have played had I gone to Portland Regionals. So, for those reasons, I'm super pumped to get into it. Before we get into it, though, don't forget to leave a like, smash the subscribe button, because I really do appreciate all of your guys' support. Alright, let's jump right in to those deck lists. Alrighty, guys, to start us off here in 16th place, we got DTE Mew. Now, I'm just going to start off real quick by saying, I am super excited to see Mew and Genesect leave the format. I really am. Mew has had plenty time in the spotlight. It's been a powerhouse in the format since it came out, and it'll probably continue to be one until it rotates. But I feel like me and along probably many others have played against Mew so many times and have just sat there and watched them say Fusion Strike system for whatever number too many times. I am sad to see Path to the Peak leave, and I am sad to see Battle VIP Pass leave, but we got a little bit of a reprint, maybe even a better one potentially, of Battle VIP Pass, or another just card in general that says, search your deck for 2 Pokemon that have 7 HP or less, and grab them up, which is really nice. So, we'll see how the format shakes up when that comes. But, for now, this is what we got here. Things I like about the deck: I like Box of Disaster, I like Technical Machine De-Evolution in the deck, I like the 1 copy of Fusion Strike Energy in here as well, to kind of help you against some tech cards that are really disruptive against Mew in the format. Things that I don't like. I don't like 3 copies of Judge. You play 1 Iono, and I totally get it for the late game, but I feel like one of the big things of DTE Mew is Judge Path, and I feel like 4 copies is where it should be. So I would probably just cut a 4 Sealstone for this for an additional Judge and go from there. I also really love a 4 Lost Vacuum in the deck. You're able to constantly remove those Path to the Peaks and stuff, and really just keep the game kind of moving. Moving into our next deck here, we got Rapid Box. Now, I'm sad to see Rapid Box leave, because I did play Rapid Box for a brief moment, and it was really fun, and I made some really cool plays when playing Rapid Box. You can pull off some really cool stuff when playing this deck. Things that I like about the deck: I like Technical Machine De-Evolution in the deck a lot. Being able to like double gunner up some stuff and then slam down Technical Machine De-Evolution to be able to take a couple prize cards in a turn and force them to burn through their rare candies and have all this stuff in their hand that they can't evolve into anymore, like Charizard or Gardevoir, is really good. I also like Counter Catcher in the deck. I feel like it's a little bit of your saving grace into Roaring Moon. This Rapid Box's worst matchup, I feel like, is Roaring Moon, because they're able to just go like 3-3 and win, because the deck's so fast and so aggressive that if they get that second Moon set up, they're able to just go like Frenzy Gouging and Teleon VMAX, and then get out of that one, Boss, Frenzy Gouging, Urshifu, 3-3. So they're able to go 3-3 faster than you're able to go 2-2-2, so I feel like Counter Catcher's a little bit of your like saving grace in that match, because they KO the first one, or if they do, you can Counter Catcher Iono, put him to 3, and hopefully make them run out of steam that way. So I like the deck. I'm glad to see Rapid Box still putting up some numbers here. I love the Counter Catcher in the deck. Technical Machine De-Evolution is always a spicy include, and I feel like it's almost an auto include at this point as well. Moving into our 14th place deck here, we got Fusion Mew. Now, Fusion Mew is a little bit different than DTE Mew. DTE Mew tends to be the more control version, as opposed to Fusion Mew, where it tends to be a little bit more aggressive than DTE Mew does. But I still have a couple things that I don't like about the deck. I still feel like you should be playing 4 Lost Vacuums, because Path to the Peak is a card that if you can't remove it and you need to be able to draw cards with Fusion Strike system, it's going to make your life really difficult. Or if they're playing things of like just other like Tool Jammers or whatever, you want to be able to Lost Vacuum and remove them as much as you possibly can. So for those reasons, I feel like 4 copies of Lost Vacuum should be in the deck, or even just remove your own Path to the Peak if you need to, is always really important. And just to be able to thin the hand, you know, if you have like Box Disaster on something and it gets like a couple damage counters on because of Sableye, then you can just be like, okay, Lost Vacuum, remove Box of Disaster, clear some cards out of your hand, draw some more Fusion Strike system. So you could put in a couple more Judge in this deck, but you don't want to clunk it up too much with Judge because you still want to make sure you're Lisa Sparkle as well. And that's why Fusion Mew is a little bit different, because you want to make sure you're playing a Lisa Sparkle. So very nicely done here. Very cool Fusion Mew deck. I'm really glad to see that we had at least one of each Mew deck in top 16, because Mew really did show up here at Portland. Moving into our next deck, we got Hybrid Mew. I don't know, it's got like 2 Fusion Strike System DTE in it. It looks like it's more towards the control variant of it though, with the heavy Path, the heavy Judge, and things of that nature, heavy Lost Vacuum. Kind of the same thing I had said about the other one though. I think you should cut a 4 Sealstone for a 4th Judge. I feel like Judge Path is just too good, especially against your opponent. Arceus really relies on that sometimes too, just like Starbirth, Judge Path. And that's kind of what they're hoping for sometimes. So for those reasons, I like the deck. I wouldn't change too much though, just that one thing. Moving into the next deck here, we got another like hybrid Mew type deck. Not going to spend too much time on it. The only thing I will say is like this list and the last list and the other place here, this one's got Switch Cart, but this one has very little switch effects. You got 2 Switch and Escape Rope and like DTE, but I feel like this is the version I would want to go with, because Switch Cart allows you to at least heal 30 damage out of your Genesect. You don't really ever need to switch out of Mew because it has free retreat. I like the Switch Cart because you can heal 30 off of the Genesect. But I feel like 3 switch effects is maybe a little too low in Mew. I feel like maybe 4 is right where you want to be, because a lot of the times they're going to try to trap your Genesect up in the active spot and force you to really have to keep switching it out a lot of the times. And putting a DTE onto it to retreat out of it always will feel bad. But sometimes it's what you have to do. So, moving on to the next deck here, we got Lost Sablezard. Now, I'm really shocked to see Lost Sablezard here in top 16. I truly did not think that Lost Sablezard was a deck going into Portland that was going to be good. I thought maybe it was like tier 2 at best, but it performed really well. I like the DTE in here because it puts the Charizard at 230, and then if you have a Fire Energy attached to it already, which you have double Raihan in the deck, so it's very possible to pull that off, you're able to KO anything like with the Miraidon deck, really. You're able to KO Roaring Moon, and you're able to hit that 230 before the Excited Heart ability triggers by making it cost 1 less each. So if they have 2 prize cards left, it's going to only cost 1 Fire Energy. But if it's really early on in the game, you can still attack with that Radiant Charizard really early because of that DTE if you need to. So I like it for those reasons. I like Technical Machine De-Evolution to be able to just like Lost Mine, put some damage counters all over the place, and then just go DM Evolution, boom, and scoop up 2-3 prize cards. Feels really good. I don't know how I feel about the Fog Crystal, but this deck is a very untraditional Lost Box deck in that way, because it's only playing 1 copy of Mirage Gate, so it's trying really hard to only ever attack with Radiant Charizard or Sableye or Cramorant, and the requirements for the deck to do so aren't very hard to meet at times, because it's only like 1 energy. You know, Cramorant usually attacks for free, and Radiant Charizard can attack with 1 energy, but if you have the DTE attached, then, you know, it doesn't really matter. So, a little bit of a weird Lost Box deck here, but very unique. I'm really excited to punch this into TCG Live and give it a shot. I wouldn't really change anything about it, mostly because, well, I don't really know much about Lost Sablezard, I'll be honest. So moving into our next deck here, we got Lost Zone Giratina. This is the deck I've been playing for quite some time, as much of you know, and I'm super glad that it performed really, really well at Portland. And only thing I would change about this 60, well, a couple things. First thing I would change, 4 VIP passes. Other thing I would change is do not play 2 Counter Catcher, 2 Boss. Just kind of split it like this. Do, you know, 2 Counter Catcher, 1 Boss, or 2 Boss, 1 Counter Catcher. You don't want to play both, I feel like, because you really want, if you're going to Counter Catcher up something, you don't really want the Boss to be sitting in your hand. So I feel like 2 Boss, 1 Counter Catcher is kind of where you want to be in the deck, because right now the way you have to play Lost Tina, I feel like, is you really need to start Lost Impacting kind of early in a lot of the matchups right now, which is really good, but That means you might be ahead on prizes, and counter catcher is very situational. I'd rather just play 2 boss, 1 counter catcher. But nicely done here. I'm super glad to see Lost Tina showing up. And we got Charizard EX here showing up and performing really well, truly. Everybody thought going into Portland that Charizard EX was the best deck in the format. It was going to perform well. Everybody knew it was going to be there. And the nice thing about Charizard, too, is it doesn't really have a lot of bad matchups. Your worst matchup is like Snorlax Stall, but there wasn't many Snorlax Stall decks at Portland. So you were able to really be aggressive with Charizard here. And I will say, I do like the 1 copies of a lot of things here. You know, you got the 1 copy of Super Rod, the 1 Counter Catcher, your 1 Forest Seal Stone, 1 Vitality Band, 1 Tool Jammer, and Justified Gloves. And then you got 1 copy of each of the Stadium, Artisan, Collapse Stadium, and Lost City. I'm not the biggest fan of the Charmander split. However, I'm starting to come around to it after watching the streams and seeing why the 60 HP Charmander with Heat Tackle is so good. I now understand, and it makes a lot of sense. But I still feel like the 70 HP Charmander might not need to be there. You could just do 3 Blazing Destruction and then do 1 with the Heat Tackle and just split it that way. I feel like splitting it this way just isn't my thing. Also, I don't think I'll ever be on board with the 90 HP Charmeleon. It's just, the times I have played Charizard, watching my Charmeleon get KO'd by Radiant Greninja just feels so bad. It just feels so bad. So I feel like for those reasons, the 100 HP Charmeleon is just better, because if you're ever put in a situation where you have to evolve in the Charmeleon, then the 100 HP one's a little more safe and a little more protected that way. But moving in to our 7th place deck here, right? 7? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oops, 8. Sorry. 8th place deck here. We got another Mew deck. Like I said, guys, Mew literally popped off at this tournament, and there's so many in top 16. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on it. We've kind of already talked about Mew as much as we really need to. You know, I don't think you need 3-4 Steel Stones. It makes sense why they're there. I would rather play 2 Elisa Sparkle because you're playing 2 Fusion Strike Energy, so maybe cut a 4 Steel Stone for an Elisa Sparkle in this list. I like the 4 Lost Vacuum. I like Double Box of Disaster. Things of that nature, but nicely done here. Mew always showing up like it will. Going into our 7th place deck here, we got Charizard EX again. I feel like 6 Fire Energies is getting way too greedy. However, I could be wrong. I mean, I don't know. I guess you only really need to, if you play it right, you only need 6 for 3 Charizards, or 6 for 2 Charizards and maybe a Pidgeot or something of that nature. But still really nicely done here. Not going to spend a whole lot of time on the list. I like the double counter catcher, though. I think double counter catcher is really nice because Charizard is one of those decks where I feel like at times it starts out really slow from behind, and then you can save that supporter for early in the game for your Arven or Iono or Research, whatever you needed to use it for, and then just counter catcher up something you want to KO. So I like that, and then the boss is a little bit later on in the game, but nicely done here. I like the double call for Family Pidgey more than the Pidgey split we saw earlier. Rodon V is just almost auto-include in the deck anymore, because especially early on in the game, being able to instant charge and just draw some cards is really nice. And you got to put your 4 Steel Stone on something, especially if you don't want to bench your Lumineon that early in the game. So, very nicely done here. Going in to our 6th place deck, we got Arceus with Regigigas Zacian. I will say, I was not a believer at all, but I'm glad that Makani Tran was able to pilot this deck to top 8, because all the Arceus believers out there are like, yes, finally. Plus, Regigigas V-Star 230 for 300 HP is kind of nuts. You know, 230 damage and Regigigas has 300 HP. Really good. And being able to put energies onto your Zacian is really nice. I'm definitely going to try this deck out. As a person who played Arctina for a while, Arceus decks will always have a little bit of a soft place in my heart. Plus, Arceus V-Star is just a fun card. Trinity Nova, Starbirth, it always feels good to be like, Trinity Nova, 180 or 200 damage, search your deck for energy cards, attach them where you want into your Vs. It always feels really, really good. So, I'm definitely going to give this deck a shot. I like the copy of Box of Disaster, respect the Gardevoir matchup. I like the counter catcher in here as well. I love Sharon's Care, being able to pick up your Regigigas and bench it again, or your Arceus or whatever. I like that a lot. And I love Jirachi in the deck because I feel like this deck really struggles against Lost Box because you're able to just be like, alright, Lost Mine, KO Spiritomb, and Squelvet. Take 2 prize cards. I feel like that's something that the deck really struggles against, or just all 12 right on your Baburl. Stop your draw engine. So, I like the Jirachi in the deck a lot. The Radiant Alakazam was very spicy to see, but it made sense when I had saw it played and really started to think about it more. So, I like this deck a lot and super pumped to give it a shot. Super pumped to pump it in the TCG Live. I wouldn't change anything about it, mostly because this is kind of a newer archetype and we don't really know too much about it yet. But I like it a lot and I'm super pumped to try it out. Alright, moving into 5th place here, we got Miraidon EX with Tapu Koko EX in the deck. Tapu Koko EX is really cool with the Vengeful Shock ability. It seems like what it tends to be used for a little bit right now, to my knowledge. I like the double experience share. This tends to be a little bit of like a hybrid between the Peony version, trying to go fast, but the other version where it's trying to play Path. And right now, Miraidon has this hybrid version here, or we have the full Path version, or we have the Peony version. So, very nicely done. I like Miraidon, and I feel like Miraidon was a safe pick going into this deck, or going into this regionals, sorry, because you don't, like, your worst matchup's Rapid Box, really, and Rapid Box wasn't really represented at Portland very well, and I feel like Miraidon is just one of those decks right now where you're able to just go really fast, and sometimes it's able to just win you the game. It's just go fast. So, very nicely done here. I would probably not play the hybrid version if it was me. I would probably play the Miraidon Path version or the Peony version, where you're just trying to get into Iron Hands fast and take early KOs and stuff. But I'm glad that at least one Miraidon deck made it in the top 16, because Miraidon is one of those things where it's going to be around until Flaffy rotates, and even then, people are talking about, like, Energy Sticker and other stuff, and I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Sound like Lugia right now. And that's kind of crazy. Moving into our 4th place deck here, we got Gardevoir EX. Now, only one Gardevoir EX here in top 16, but I was glad that it made it in, because Gardevoir is another one of those decks, very like Miraidon, where we will always think about it in the back of our head. Oh, I need it for this matchup, or I need this card for the Miraidon matchup, or the Gardevoir matchup, you know, with Box of Disaster. You gotta respect it because it is there. And Gardevoir is one of those decks where I think it'll continue to be here, maybe even after rotation. We lose Mirage Step Kirlia, sure, but we got the Refinement Kirlia still. We just kind of need new attackers, really. But we still get, you know, Screamtail. You can attack with Gardevoir itself. So, we'll have to see what happens. But, very nicely done here. I wouldn't change anything about this Gardevoir deck, truly. The Gardevoir deck makes sense to play more counter catcher than boss because you're always playing from behind. That's why the reversal energy is in the deck. Maybe you could go to 2 copies of Worker, but you also play the Lost Vacuum in there as well. But the Lost Vacuum, I feel like, is in there to remove the Box of Disaster to make the one-hit KO easier. So I'm not too sure. Maybe I don't want to cut an Iono for a Worker because one of the strong points about Gardevoir is heavy Iono repetition and stuff. So, I don't know. I like the Manaphy and the Jirachi here. It's really nice. I like the Screamtail and the Cresselia both in the deck. So, you could maybe try to fit in another Worker, but I don't really know where you'd try to get it at. Maybe you cut like an Ultra Ball for the Worker, potentially. So, could try that, but very nicely done here. Going into 3rd place with our final Mew deck of top 16, we got Fusion Mew showing up again in 3rd place. I wouldn't change anything about the list because, like I said, I don't know. You could maybe put in another Judge, but then it still gets weird because you got at least a Sparkle. And I like how there's like a Professor Truro Scenario in the deck, or at least a Penny. But Truro Scenario is nice because you can at least pick up the Mew with it. But you have to discard everything, which feels kind of bad. But This deck also has more of a heavy energy count as opposed to the DTE version where it only plays, 4 energy or 5 energy. This one plays 7, so you can be a little more reckless when it comes to that kind of thing. So nicely done here. Maybe you could add a switch card in somewhere, maybe a 4th Lost Vacuum. I still really feel like 3-4 Seal Stones is too much. I feel like you only need 2-4 Seal Stones because most of the time, especially when I have played Mew, that I've noticed, when I go to play for a Seal Stone on to attach to a Pokemon, I tend to use Star Alchemy that turn, and that's just what it ends up being. So maybe get the 2-4 Seal Stones, but you could add, maybe a Judge or a Lost Vacuum in there, maybe another Switch card or something, and go that route. Going into second place here, we got Lost Tina. Now, I won't spend a whole lot of time on this Tina list because, well, it's kind of similar to all the other Tina lists we've seen. The only thing I will say is Technical Machine De-Evolution is kind of weird in the deck, and I didn't expect it to be in here, but it does make sense, but I feel like having 2 Sableye is more important. So, if it were me, I would cut the Technical Machine De-Evolution for the Sableye. I like the 2-boss 1 counter catcher split in here. It makes a lot of sense. But I also would like to see an Iono in the deck as well, and I would like to see that get put in here somewhere. So maybe try to fit in an Iono, try to fit in a second Sableye. I would probably cut Technical Machine De-Evolution for that. I don't know what I would cut for the Iono, though. Moving into our first place deck here, we got Lost Zone Giratina. Again, I was absolutely amazed and super pumped when I got to watch the finals, and it was Lost Tina versus Lost Tina, and I was like, man, that's awesome. That made me so happy, especially a person who's been playing Lost Tina, and out of all the people out there like Lost Tina's mid, Lost Tina's, it bricks, I'm like, sure, it has bad hands. What deck doesn't have bad hands? But I felt like Lost Tina was just that deck that going into any regional, it's a safe pick. You're 50-50 against so many matchups. Your worst matchup's probably like maybe Charizard, but that's still super doable. And like, the deck is good. I like Lost Tina, and it's a good deck. I like to see 3 Water Energies in here. You can get away with 2, but 3 also is very comfortable. I would like to see a second Sableye still, but I like the 2-boss 1 counter catcher. I would like to see maybe an Iono in here somewhere as well, but I don't really know where you'd fit it in. I would probably like to see maybe a second Sableye over the Iono, and then you can just kind of Roxanne them a couple times in the late game. Because once I hit 3 prize cards, you can hit the Roxanne. So those are the couple things I would change about the deck, though. I'm so glad that Lost Tina was represented really well. So the things that we learned about Portland, there were so many Mews, so much Mew. Lost Tina is a good deck, and nobody can convince anybody otherwise. And Charizard may have been best deck in format going into this, but with only 2 decks in top 16, didn't show up and perform as great as we all had hoped it would. So let's jump right in to that outro. Alrighty, guys, and that's going to do it here for our top 16 deck lists at Portland Regionals. Let me know what deck you guys would have played. Had you gone to Portland Regionals, I would have played Lost Tina, like I had said earlier, and my energy talking about the Lost Tina decks and stuff always gets me a little chipper. I am really excited to see Mew leave, sad to see Rapid Box leave, sad to see Path to the Peak leave, Battle VIP Pass leaves, but we got a little bit of a fix when it comes to it, so we'll see how that all works out later on. But if you haven't yet, don't forget to leave a like, smash the subscribe button, because I really do appreciate all of your guys' support. Alrighty, I'll see you in the next one. Peace!